There. You're on.
All right. So Rob or Dennis, which one's going to do the roll call?
I'll do roll call. Thanks, Drew.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Miss Pecora?
Here.
Thank you.
I'm
Mr.
here.
Vidali?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Present.
Mr. McCarthy?
Present.
Mr. Hanson? Mr. Brand? Or
He's
Mr.
here. I'm promoting the panelist right now, actually.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Gatto?
Here.
Mr. Bodges?
I'm here.
Mr. Wilkin?
Here.
Mr. Baden?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ferraro or Mr. Hubbard?
Joe Ferraro here.
Thank you, Mr. Ferraro. Mr. Ferraro is a new member from the town of Saugerties.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
Miss Welton? Mr. Watkins? Mr. Onquist? I know you're here. I saw you, Frank. I know you're here.
I'm still here.
Yep, there you go. Mr. Markowitz, I know you're here, Mr. Markowitz. I saw you. Mr. Rudikoff asked to be excused. Mr. Travers?
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Markowitz. Mr. Travers? Miss Weisberg, if that's the correct pronunciation.
Weisbird or Weisbird, fine.
Thank you very much. And from the village of New Paltz, thank you for joining us. The first name is Stana?
Stana, sounds like Donna.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Did you call Welton?
I did, Vivian. I got you down. I saw you on the,
Thank
I
you.
saw you on the last.
Thank you.
Okay, hopefully everybody got a chance to review the minutes. Anybody would like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
McLaughlin.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Okay,
That was,
Thanks.
is that Stana?
yes,
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I'll say my name.
Thank you.
all right, minutes are approved. Okay, anything on the educational and training opportunities anybody wants to talk about? These, all right, I attended one this week, the solar law. Unfortunately, I could only attend the first hour and a half or so. That was pretty good. That was the one sponsored by Rockland County. All right, let's move
Yeah,
on.
Drew, I know Dutchess County had some coming up. All they're doing them all virtual still. But if you go to the Dutchess County, I think it's Planning Department's page or Planning Federation. I'm
They
not
use
sure
a-
which
yeah.
it is.
They use a federation. Yeah.
Federation. So there's a couple of them coming up there that look interesting. I think there were some on wetlands. There were some interesting classes if anyone's interested. And I think they're doing them totally free during the virtual, since they're not in person.
Mike, can you do us a favor? If you know where they are, could you put the link in the chat?
I will. I'll try to find it.
Okay.
Rockland County's doing a case law review too. I think it's on May 26th.
All right,
Yeah, that's with DOS, right? That they usually do them with DOS, Department of State.
Good question.
yeah, I think that was the one, at least the one I watched was the OS.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's gonna be from Silverberg Zelantis LLC is the presenter.
It's different.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving right along. Any community reports?
Yeah, I noticed in the communications it has the Plattekill sent in about lead agent on New Paltz Care application, which is the nursing home. They want to move in on Route 32. The funny thing that hit me on it is the town board is taking lead agent, which when I was on the planning board never happened. So I don't know what's going on. This will be interesting to see how it plays out.
That Marianne's old place?
Yeah.
Don't they have a new overlay district? I forget.
I looked in, that should be in the zoning book, right?
Yeah, I think they had, didn't they, I could have sworn we reviewed.
I thought we did.
So
I
that
thought
might
we
be
did
why.
do the referral on it, but it's not listed in the zoning yet.
Okay.
So this will be really interesting to see. But the town board just lost one of the longer term members on there, and they have a replacement already from someone else who moved out of the area. So they're getting a heavy, plus a new supervisor. So they have a heavy turnover on the town board, and the planning board has also had a heavy turnover. So this will be interesting to kind of see
Yeah.
how it plays out.
Okay, anybody else?
Well,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
well, so the town of New Paltz was chosen by DEC to be the recipient of a training program for conservation overlay zoning technical assistance project.
Okay,
It's gonna start this month and go through December, and the idea, I guess, is that we end up with a, an overlay area for conservation that could be incorporated into our zoning. So we'll see how that goes.
Who's conducting that, Amanda? From DEC? You're muted, Amanda.
yeah.
Sorry, it's Laura Hetty, and then I think Gretchen Stevens and Ted Fink.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, Mike, you were gonna say
Yeah,
something?
first, I found the Dutchess County training. Actually, one of them is tonight, or excuse me, tomorrow night. But there are a couple others that I saw on their list, so I put that in the chat. Second thing I want to talk about, and the town of Rochester is considering hiring a part-time municipal planner on staff as an employee. We've been using consultants to review our planning board applications for a lot of years. We see the price rising quickly and considerably, and are exploring this opportunity because we think it's not necessarily fair that our applicants have to pay their own consultants and engineers and then turn around and pay similar very high prices to the town's consultants. We put out an ad in Indeed and we got 33 responses.
Wow.
A lot of people who are just graduating graduate school or have in the last couple of years, although there were a couple seasoned veteran planners as well who applied. The reason I'm bringing it up is we're looking at this to be a 20-hour-a-week position to aid the planning board, CBA, and the town board. What I would put out there is if there's another township that was interested in doing a shared service by making this 20 hours a week in Rochester and 20 hours a week in some other town, we could then potentially increase the attractiveness of this by offering health insurance and benefits and splitting the cost. We would raise our application fees to help offset the cost. It probably will not be a one-to-one comparison, but we think that this will be an advantage to have an in-house planner. And so if any of you can bring it back to your town boards. If you think they might be interested, please have them reach out directly to me, and we think it's a good opportunity. The second thing that I wanted to bring up is today I went through a disaster drill training that Central Hudson puts on. They do it once a year internally within their own scope. This year, they invited myself and Supervisor Walsh from Rosendale. Unfortunately, she was unable to attend. From the Ulster County, we had the director of the fire coordinator, Mike Gaffney, and Michael Madsen, who's the emergency management coordinator. A woman from the local Red Cross was involved. And we walked through a scenario of a potentially realistic situation of a storm that hit South Carolina that Central Hudson then sent assistance down to help solve, that then shifted direction and ended up hitting our area. They compounded it with a lightning strike and a brush fire in Minnewaska to add further complication to the situation, all very possibly plausible and realistic. We spent about 5 hours going through step by step the whole process, what department does what, did a lot of communication. They did it very realistic. We actually broke out into a separate area, those of us who would have been on a municipal call. It was really informative. And I know they have their issues with billing right now, but I will say it was very well put on. It was top notch. A lot of really smart questions, a lot of really good dialogue, and they're going to continue doing this every year. Internally, it's part of their safety manual and their process that they use, but they're going to start involving the towns and the county more in this process. So was a
Where do they hold it,
really-
Mike?
At their center in Lake Katrine.
Okay.
So,
When they open it back up again, can you send information out?
Yeah, I mean, this was just a once a year thing that they do. I'm not quite sure why I was invited. I actually asked them that, and they said they picked us, Rochester and Rosendale. I'm not quite sure the reasoning behind it, but it was a really good experience, and I learned a lot about the behind the scenes of what happens internally within their organization during a disaster event. So,
Okay, thanks, Mike.
yep.
Anybody else? I will mention one thing for Olive. As some of you know, the flood buyout in Boyceville, one of the critical structures that's in Boyceville is the firehouse. And the fire department's been working on funding and getting their design ready for a new firehouse, I'll say up the road towards Kingston, just east of Bread Alone, etc. And it looks like they've broken ground. And from my understanding, if things go well, they hope to be in that facility this time next year.
Yeah, they had their entranceways all done.
Yeah, I was surprised that
Yeah.
they put in the curb cut. I would have thought that would have been the last thing they did, but it was turned out to be the first thing they did. Yep. And I assume, I haven't seen any activity yet, but I'm assuming work will start soon on the bridge down in Boyceville to be replaced. They did a lot of clearing last fall. Looks like it's all set to start significant construction. All right, nothing else. We'll move on.
Dennis, do you want to just mention the Woodstock that you and I went to?
No, go ahead, Mike. You can do it.
Yeah, so Dennis did a Zoom, sort of a training, but I don't know if I'd classify it as a training. It sort of started out as a question and answer session where Dennis would ask questions of the board. And was it with just the planning board, Dennis, or was it a mixture?
I just saw mostly planning board there. We
Okay.
invited the other boards as well, but I saw mostly planning board there.
Yeah, it started out, we weren't quite sure where it was gonna head, and there weren't a lot of questions, and then we ended up with over a 2-hour dialogue, and that's really I think the key was the dialogue. Yeah, Dennis had asked me if I would go along with him virtually, and I did, and I think they got a lot out of it. But I want to thank Dennis for putting it together. You obviously did some preparation in your questions. He looked through their code and discovered, actually, one thing he discovered that was kind of crucial is nowhere was the planning board ever enabled in codified anywhere in law that he could find. And they think maybe it may have been done by a resolution somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
But
they finally sent me the resolution. It goes back into the 60s, I think, Mike. Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, but it's
But
something
it's-
that everybody might want to take a look at within your own local laws, within your towns or your municipalities, is make sure that the functions of the planning board are actually codified somewhere in law.
Okay.
And we would offer this training to other boards as well. So please be aware that
Dennis,
we'll
are
be,
you-
if anybody
still-
wants that kind of stuff, we'll be happy. And you can pick a topic if you like a topic. We'd offer that training.
Dennis, are you still working on doing that training with the Olive Planning Board?
I reached out to Heidi. I haven't heard back from her, but the short answer is yes.
Okay, all right. All right. Moving on, planning board reports. As a chairman, I don't have anything really to say. I guess I would like to bring up one thing that came up at the last, I think it was last meeting. Particularly for new members, and when some of the older members on the county, correct me if I say something wrong here, but when we're voting for or against one of the applications before us, we're actually voting for support of the planning department's suggested response to the referring body. We're really not voting for or against the application itself, whether you like it or don't like it, or thinks it fits or doesn't fit. It's really, we're voting on the recommendations from the planning department. So I just wanted to try to make that clear, because sometimes on these controversial things, it's easy to say no when you're not actually voting against the application. You're voting against the recommendations from the board. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, all right.
Clear as they tell.
Drew, just because we have a new member and we have a couple alternates tonight that we haven't seen, just a quick reminder that if there's an application in front of us tonight that is something you will vote on or even have comment on within your local municipality, you have to recuse yourself. And so it's really hard sometimes if you know the answer to something we're talking about, but you're not allowed to speak on the topic, and you must recuse yourself from the application and from any discussion on the application.
Good, thanks, Mike. All right. Planning department reports, financial report, Dennis.
So we're still early in the budget season, even though we are starting to look at the 2023 budget at the county level, but we're still early in the budget season. We're in really good shape financially from the planning department. I will tell you that we do have another planner starting in the office that's going to focus on housing. He'll start on the 15th or 16th of May. So just be aware of that. We will have another body in the office. His name is Kai. Kai Lord Farmer is his name. He's actually from California. He's actually from this area originally, but he was currently working in California and wanted to come back into this area. So he'll be starting in May. Other than that, we're in, we don't have any major. We're currently signing contracts for studies along from the Transportation Council. We're currently signing contracts for about 121,000 for studies on the Route 9W corridor. And we have proposals in for a rail safety study in the city of Kingston, and that's about I think we don't have the cost proposals, but we have allocated about $80,000 to $95,000 for that study. So the professional service stuff will come down relatively quickly once those get done. Any questions on that? I mean, the financial report, the board's not responsible for the finances. It's just for information purposes. You don't have a fiduciary responsibility with respect to the finances.
This is Watkins. I'm asking about Kai. What is his job going to be?
His title, he's a civil service. His title is a senior planner. He's actually going to do a lot of work on housing. So he's going to take a lot of the load off. I've been doing a lot of the housing work. So his focus is going to be on housing. We're also I'm going to talk to him. We want him to spend a little bit of time on transportation. He originally worked for an MPO. So he's actually a transportation engineer. So we also want him to do some work on transportation to take some of the load off our transportation people. So it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 70 to 75% of his time is going to be on housing efforts, and the other rest of his time is going to be on doing some transportation efforts. We're currently working out a schedule of all of his duties and responsibilities right now.
Did you say he just started?
So he's working for the board then. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
He's working for you guys. It's not
Yeah.
an outside agency.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis, did you say he just started?
No, he's going to start in the middle of May. I think the 15th or 16th.
So he'll be doing like a lot of stuff like what Bert does?
No, Bert's going to continue in his job and his work. He has a little bit more responsibilities on the agriculture work because
right.
we're beginning to do some agricultural work. But Bert's going to continue to handle the housing grants that are out there. We're going to deal. Kai's going to deal more with the land use associated with housing. So a lot of work on zoning statutes, comprehensive plans, those types of things.
Oh, okay, sounds good.
Would he be a resource with the towns for that type of stuff?
That's exactly what he's going to do. We're gonna start a whole outreach program with the towns on housing.
Great, terrific.
We're currently in the process of essentially developing what they call a housing smart communities program, and he's going to assist in that implementation.
Okay. All right.
Dennis, I have a town board member who's just waiting because we're ready to start a housing advisory committee in Rochester. So
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Dennis, you got anything on the environmental notices or grant opportunities?
No, I think the one thing on the grant opportunities, but on the environmental notice bulletins, I don't have anything. The only thing I would note is that lead agency issue with respect to, I'm just trying to think, we just mentioned it. I lost it. The town board, the Rupco town board for the project on the old Quality Insight. It's a supportive housing project. That is actually the county through its American Rescue Funds is actually funding the water and sewer extensions out to service that project. I think it's up to $2 million the county is committed to provide water and sewer for that project.
Wow.
And then, I'm sorry, the other issue was on the grant opportunities. The only thing I would note with respect to the grant opportunities is the 2022 consolidated funding applications are out. I think we sent you, I asked Mary Ann to send that notice around. If you haven't gotten it, let me know. You can, if you go on the New York State Consolidated Funding Applications, you can download what they call there's a resource, the resources that are committed this year. So it'll give you a sense of the funding that's out there from the different buckets. And then also the commitment with respect to what the application guidelines are. So if you need, there's not a lot of money there for housing, but there is quite a bit of money there for infrastructure and for economic development purposes.
Okay.
Any questions? That's all I have, Drew.
All right, thanks. Okay, how about communications?
No, I don't have any communications to talk about. I'm fine.
Okay, and we'll move on to your Director of Staff reports.
Well, let me just do one conversation with respect to communications. The board should be aware that two things. One is that we continue to work with the town of Shandaken and the Catskill Mountain, Rail Explorers in that area to try to lessen their impact on what the neighbors are complaining about on one of the sections where the Rail Explorers run through. There's quite a bit of emails and outreach by individuals along Andrew Lane to try to generate a response that is to their liking. And we continue to try to work to try to balance the needs of Rail Explorers with the concerns being expressed by the residents, and they're particularly on the noise issue and some lighting issues, and particularly as it moves into some of the late at night runs. So if you hear anything about that, it's not that we're ignoring that question or that problem. We're actually trying to work to address it. But I'm not sure how successful we'll be. I understand the neighbors' concerns, but I don't think I have a solution for the neighborhood that is going to address all of their concerns, except not to run the facilities at all after late in the afternoon.
Okay.
Wait, do those rail cars make that much noise, or is it the people?
You know, I mean, here's the gist of this is that it's not necessarily at least in my opinion, it's not necessarily the amount of noise, it's the duration, because the time it takes for the rail cars to go through the properties is not like a train going by. This has been explained to me by the neighbors numerous times. And so they're concerned that effectively, if you run so many runs a day and it takes 10 minutes going past their house and 10 minutes coming back from their house, that they don't get a lot of rest from whether the noise is loud or not loud. It's seemingly constant to them. And that's their concern. And then the Rail Explorers has run I shouldn't say late at night, but they've run into the evening hours. And so that generates additional problems with respect to that. Rail Explorers has put up privacy fences. They've established quiet zones in that area where they ask the people on the cars not to be boisterous. And then their latest discussion is essentially to try to eliminate late night runs or evening runs past the residential area by running into the Mount Tremper station and not crossing 28. And that's drawn some ire with respect to the proposals. It relates, I believe, mainly with respect to lighting, because there's not a lot of neighborhood there to be concerned about noise. So that's generated some concerns as well. So they've tried to address some of the concerns, and they've raised more concerns. And so it's going to continue to play out over time. And we're going to try to help work with the Rail Explorers and the community to address those concerns. And we've had multiple conversations with the individual that's expressed those concerns. They don't necessarily appreciate some of the answers, so they seek other people within the county to address their concerns in a different manner. If you hear anything about it, we're diligently trying to figure out what we can do to address their concerns, while at the same time respecting the needs of the needs and operations of the business.
Okay.
Because I think they're just running on weekends right now. I mean, when we get into the summer, it's going to be, yeah.
The schedule is let's just say they're successful, and success has bred a schedule that represents that. So they run, I don't know the number of tours, but they do run tours into the evening hours, and I'm not sure exactly what their current schedule is, but they have posted their schedule from, I can't remember when it's from, but the schedule is up there and posted, and you can get a sense of that of the number of runs that they do participate in.
So they're running a schedule all day, and the evening hours that they're talking about doing the short run that only ends up at the depot and doesn't go past houses, it will be a 6:30, an 8:30, and a 10:30 run. And the 10:30 run actually will come back for just before midnight. So the people across from the parking lot, they actually both wrote letters in support of the Rail Explorers, feeling that they were good neighbors. But I spoke to one of them and he was not happy with that late run.
Yeah.
I know that the Rail Explorers had said they would exit the people from the parking lot closer to Route 28 to try to avoid going past their houses. So I'm hoping that's the case. But
Yeah,
he would,
and that's what they've indicated to us, and we certainly understand that concern with respect to that late run.
yeah. And the lighting on the track for the nighttime run, they want to put some lighting to have some dramatic effect other than just having a dark track. That's got the neighborhood concerned because they don't really have a specific plan yet of what the lighting will look like. And there's dark sky issues. But the other issue is that it's really close to Route 28. So if it's really bright and flashing or anything really dramatic, it might distract drivers. So that's the other issue that's been
Yeah,
raised.
and we're aware of that, and we've spoken to Rail Explorers about that, particularly some of the tunnel effects that they talked about. But we, and this board has accepted, and we certainly would accept the idea of dramatic uplighting or some path lighting along the tracks themselves. But we've tried to talk to them about the issue with respect to some of the more
Hey.
demonstrative effects that they had proposed in there. They produced a mood board.
I'm on their
that-
website right now. Their last run is 4 p.m. and I'm into the middle of summer here on the weekend.
Yeah, no, there's a special, they have posted a draft schedule, and Vivian's right, Rob.
Okay.
It does run, I think the
You
last
can't
run
do it
is
through
at
the
10:30.
website, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
they may not have implemented it, but I've seen a schedule that runs that late.
I didn't realize they were running at night. Interesting. All right.
Yeah,
Dennis, how about- go ahead.
No, they've always run, I think, I don't remember their last run. I think it was 8:30 or something of that nature, but they haven't run as late as they're proposing now. But they're doing it in an area that is literally, it doesn't have, shouldn't say that. I think there may be one or two houses in there. But it literally doesn't, it's not adjacent to any neighborhood that I'm currently aware of, and somebody will probably prove me wrong, but, we take the idea of going in and out of the station, does have a neighborhood associated with it.
Okay. How about staff reports, Dennis?
Only the one I just mentioned, which is the new staff person.
Okay.
I can.
All right.
You want me to say something about redistricting real quick?
Sure, Robert, thank you.
Sure. So the redistricting commission has a draft plan out there. I'm not sure it's on the website yet, but there are 2 public hearings scheduled. I'll put them in the chat right now for you, but they're on the 16th and the 19th at 7 p.m. They're both in person. One's in the Modena Firehouse. That's on the 16th. And May 19th, Thursday, is at the Sorgity Senior Center at Cantine Field. So those are the 2 public hearings. So if you're interested in new redistricting plan, you can go to those.
Yeah, and I just want to commend Rob. This was a tough group to work with. I shouldn't say this was an engaged group to work with. There was some amount of effort that had to be done in order to essentially do that mapping. Rob spent a whole Saturday with them trying to get a map to come together, and then some late, I shouldn't say late nights, but certainly some nights that dragged on to get to a map. And then we've had a number of FOIL requests associated with the mapping that was done, and the software didn't prove as congenial as we thought it would be in terms of getting a decent mapping product. And then there were problems with the census itself, which caused some consternation among board members, and it has to do with the way population is allocated below the block group. And it's technical, but I'll just leave it at that.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
What redistricting is this? I'm not.
Oh, for the
County
county
legislature.
legislature, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, for the
Okay.
county legislature.
Yep.
And I suspect we haven't seen this yet, but I suspect we may be asked to do a similar for the ward, for the Kingston wards.
Yeah, I did it last time for
So
them.
we need to reach
So-
out to them, Rob, and see what if that's what they're gonna ask us to do that.
All right, I'll have to retool and see how it works. My license only runs through the end of August, so go beyond that, I'm done.
All right. How about special topic, Dennis?
Just a couple of things. One is that, and this has to do with, what's happened due to the pandemic and the economic vitality that we're currently experiencing, nationwide. What we're seeing is that the cost of projects, capital projects particularly, has escalated where, if you don't understand why a project is costing more, there's a tendency to sort of point fingers about how these estimates were done and when were they last updated. And what we're seeing with regard to engineering estimates is that the numbers that we're seeing are not 5% increases or 10% increases. Usually what we do is when we escalate costs for capital projects, you take a look at the general cost of construction and you do what they call a year of YOE. It's a year of expenditure. So if you estimated the project in 2020, and if you don't have an estimate for 2022, you can estimate based on, this is the average, if it's a bridge project, it's one, if it's a road project, it's another. But anyway, they're generally between 3 to 7% per year. And what we're seeing with respect to some of these projects is it's no longer 3 to 7%, it's 30 to 50%.
Wow.
In terms of what we're seeing in terms of the cost. And it's driving some shockwaves with respect to the decision makers to fund, and quite frankly, with respect to those folks that are essentially responsible for estimating the projects. And we've seen this, we're doing what they call a transportation improvement plan update on the transportation side. And we're seeing the examples I would give you is we have a project in the town of Lloyd that is $1.7 million over a $4.2 million budget. It's $1.7 million more. We have the county has a Kingston rail trail that I've been involved with. The engineering estimate between last year and this year has gone up $600,000 with respect to probably about a $2.2 million project. And that we're seeing that right through the entire tip update process. And what that means is that even though we have a little bit more money than we had in the past from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, we didn't do any additional call for projects because literally all the money gets taken up with regard to the additional cost of projects, and we're not able to essentially do any additional projects. And I think that's going to be a shock for some people when they start to say, well, what happened with all the money that the feds put down relative to the Infrastructure and Jobs Act? And the answer is, it didn't buy you any more projects. It just bought you being able to do the projects that were there and funded to make the difference up. At least in Ulster County, that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing similar increases with respect to some of the things that aren't federally funded that are going through the county's approval process right now. So that conversation is ongoing, trying to make sure that we can make the decision makers understand that there's a bit of an unprecedented change in terms of the cost of projects.
Dennis, on that, well, I just checked in around the region, diesel prices are up around $6.50 a gallon. And I was wondering, I heard that there was some talk about the county legislator want to drop the county tax. The county tax doesn't make up that much on a per gallon, does it?
I don't know, Thomas, and I can I can try to find out for you, but,
I
and I don't
can
know
answer
what, I know that proposal was out there, but,
They did adopt that at the last legislature meeting and it's the same, it mirrors the time frame of the state gas tax.
Goes to the end of the
From
year,
June 1st through, I think it's November 1st.
December
The state, the
31st.
county is gonna do half, 50% of the tax rebate.
But if they do that, that will cut back on the amount of funds you have for transportation, right?
not from a county perspective.
It's a sales tax in the county, Tom. It's
Yeah.
not, it's
Oh,
not.
it's not a, it's
Yeah,
not.
the
it's
sales
not a
tax from the
road-
county just goes into the general fund.
Right, the state is a road tax or not, or is the state?
I'm not aware. I know the federal tax is a highway, it
Okay.
goes to the highway fund.
All right,
Our controller, March Gallagher, put some interesting information up about it on Facebook.
Okay.
Thanks. All right,
quick,
moving on. Good.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
quick question, Dennis, you got any update on the new 911 center?
I do not. We're still going through site selection. Hopefully by next month.
Okay, just to point out, the county's gas suspension goes until December 31st.
Okay. All right, looks like we're up to public comment. So Rob, is there anybody from the public that wants to speak that you know of?
Well, we have 8 people in the attendees, so if anybody wants to speak now, please raise your hand and we'll recognize you. Or if you have a project that's on the agenda for tonight, also let us know. Okay, I got one person here. All right, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
again.
Hi, my name is Mark Rosso. I'm a longtime town of Rochester resident and on the planning board for the town of Rochester. And I know that you guys are talking about the moratorium today that Mr. Baden has referenced multiple times in our town. And I just wanted to basically speak for a brief minute. I know you guys are busy and have a lot to talk about. So ultimately, the town has received an unfathomable amount of applications at both the code enforcement level and the zoning and planning office. And with this, I really want to endorse the need for the moratorium for our town. I think it's really, really important due to the open spaces that we have and prime and important soils that we really take a look and take a step back and act instead of reacting. And I know that it's in front of you guys tonight, and I would just like a little opportunity for you guys to look a little bit more in depth on that. That's all.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else would like to speak? Raise your hand. Okay, guess not.
Okay, all right, let's move on to the zoning referrals. So the first one up is Town of Lloyd. Are there any recusals from Town of Lloyd?
Scott McCarthy recused for
Okay,
this one
Scott.
and the next.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Sure.
Okay, Robert.
Does everybody see the aerial?
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
All right, so this project is called, actually, sorry, I'm on the wrong one, actually. This is the next one. But anyway, local laws, let me go to my PowerPoint. So that's where we want to be. There we go. Everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so local law C of 2022, the zoning statute amendment. The sole amendment is a new definition for agriculture buffer. And it reads, an area of land intended to protect uses on an adjoining lot from the impacts of agricultural uses. Such buffer shall be on any lot adjacent to an agricultural use and shall be created during subdivision, site plan, or site plan amendment, and shall include natural or planted vegetation or fencing or both, sufficient to provide a visual and noise buffer as required by this chapter, and shall not be paved nor used for buildings, accessory buildings, parking, storage, or sewage disposal areas. We have a couple of questions on it. They're advisory in nature. First one is, not entirely sure why the buffer area couldn't be used necessarily. You couldn't put a septic system in a buffer area. Those aren't usually too visual in nature. So just make that comment. Also, they use the word agricultural uses. I looked at the statute to see if agricultural uses itself is defined. It is not. So what we'd like them to do is specify that a little bit more. And it's vague. So is it all agricultural uses? What size limits? Is it somebody doing some gardening? What does this constitute? Or should it be those lands are within the New York State Certified Agricultural District, and or are they a farm operation consistent with New York State law? So we think that should be one of those, there should be those two things, not, they should really get a little bit tighter on that definition. But those are advisory comments. And also the just questioning the need to not disallow septic systems within that buffer area.
Motion to support staff.
Second. Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Vivian. Wouldn't a septic system near a farm operation be a risk of contamination if it was a food product?
Yeah, but that's not what they're suggesting, Vivian. They're suggesting they're creating visual and noise buffers. You know, and septic systems that operate appropriately are not a contamination risk.
I think Mike had a question.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand. So it's on properties adjacent to an agricultural use. It kind of feels to me like it's a taking of that property. I mean, if a person knows they're next to an agricultural use and doesn't care and wants to utilize that property, I'm not quite sure I understand I understand it's to create a buffer zone, but they're creating the buffer zone on the neighboring properties, not on the agriculture. So
I brought up the
just
same
don't see how
question
it's gonna-
actually in our discussion. So I wasn't
sorry?
sure why it couldn't be on the other side of the property if they're the
So-
ones doing the activity. Go on, Dennis.
The short answer here is that yes, there's a restriction on the adjoining property. But the other answer is that the county's farmland protection plan actually calls for agricultural buffers. And when we made that call for agricultural buffers, the farm people said we shouldn't have to suffer for our operations. If there's a need for an agricultural buffer, and we believe there is, then it should be on the adjoining property. And this only, so that's how this got here. And it's pretty standard in some of the other zoning statutes.
Okay.
All right,
What
Tom
is
had a,
the-
well,
Okay, go ahead.
I got a couple hands up. I got Tom.
One question I had is when they talk about next to an agriculture operation, what happens if that operation goes out of existence? Does that mean they can things can come back in if it's and all those items go out, or are they going to be in the plan that distance has to be maintained no matter what from now to eternity?
I think they'd probably have to amend the standard section. This is this is the definition. So I don't know if they regulate that elsewhere under.
Because at some point you're going to get some farms that are going to be sold and developed.
Cashless bill has undermined our ability to provide.
So the short answer, Thomas, if it doesn't meet the definition of an agricultural use, then it wouldn't be required.
Right.
If they already had an approval, or if they wanted to seek an approval afterwards, the individual could make that case that it's no longer an agricultural use.
Okay.
Okay, Amanda had a question.
Yeah, I just, so maybe I'm not thinking of this in the right place if it isn't into the standards, but I think the vagueness of the sufficient to provide the buffer for visual is awful vague also, because someone could say that's 5 feet and someone could say it's 50 feet. I mean, I don't know.
I'm hearing you. So in other words, they should set a minimum or a maximum. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I think, wait, let me go back to the definition. Okay.
Yeah.
It may be in the
It
rest.
says in visual and noise buffer as required by this chapter. So I think they might actually be regulating that elsewhere.
Okay,
Thanks.
But we can still make the comment.
yeah. We'll check that and we'll see whether or not, hey, Bert, you're on here. Can you go on and check their zoning statute and see if it's in there elsewhere and get back to the board while we continue?
So
What
they
exactly do you want me to look at?
Take a look and see whether there's a visual and noise buffers in the statute are required
For the
based
agriculture
on that
buffer.
definition.
So are they
Okay, I'll take a look.
Thank
Are they
you.
protecting the agricultural use from the vision and noise? Are they
Yeah,
protecting?
the thought behind this, just let me give you the background. The thought behind this is that people that move in next to agricultural operations have a tendency, it's like moving in next to an airport. Why is it noisy? You know, if they move into agricultural operations and they don't really understand that these things can be inherently problematic in some instances, whether it's because they're mowing early in the morning, whether it's because the cattle are out, whether it's because of dust coming off because they're plowing, et cetera. And so the thought behind these things was essentially in order to avoid the complaints that end up at the town board level, which then end up trying to regulate the agricultural use, which no one wants to do because a lot of these statutes, a lot of these communities have right to farm legislation. What you're trying to do is head off those complaints in terms of the design and placement of structures and buildings and uses adjacent to the agricultural operation.
Okay, thanks.
And Vivian, you had a question.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this paragraph and it says it's intended to protect the adjoining lot from the impacts. Well, why would the burden then be on the person in the adjoining lot if it's protecting from the other lot? Why wouldn't the burden be on the agricultural lot to protect the adjoining lot?
Well, you can raise that issue, but I can tell you that the farmland protection plan that was done by the county suggests that the burden should be on the adjoining lot.
This is Chris Brandon Marlboro. We have something very similar in our town code, and 8 times out of 10, whenever it's been applied, it was when a farmer was subdividing some of his agricultural land and building new lots on it.
Right. And it sort of implies that when you're going to do a subdivision or a site plan, that you create the buffer as part of that application.
Okay,
I
I
just
it does say that, yes.
I just have a comment about this, and this section of the law is to support the right to farm. And under New York State real estate law, when you take a piece of property, it's buyer beware. And it's really a law because people are buying property without thinking about what, they're buying a piece of property and then they're saying, we don't like the smell of manure. We don't like to ride behind a tractor. Well, if that's the way you feel, you don't buy a piece of property next to a farm.
Right.
But the right to farm takes precedent over idiocy.
Good point.
So we have 2 advisory recommendations. One is relative to the agricultural uses, and the other one may be relative to the distance, and Bert's checking on those distances. If they're not in the statute, we'll make that recommendation as well.
Okay. So do we have a motion? I
We
think
do have a motion, Mr. Watkins, and a second by Mr. Brown.
That's what I thought. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. We're moving on.
All right.
Next one there, Rob, for Town Lloyd.
Yep. And Scott already said he was recused on this.
Yes.
All right, cuisine machine. So this is a site plan to allow restaurant use of mobile food trucks with takeout service only. It's on 9W, just on the east side. So it's you can only go northbound here. And it's just south of Lumen Lane. I'll bring up that aerial again. So it's this parcel here. And I'll zoom out a little bit. So you have, sorry about that. There's Lumen Lane over in there. Salux is in there. So it's this parcel here. Pretty tight parcel. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So we got referral. This is a lot of it's actually conceptual. We may yet see this again, but this is the site plan we've received so far. So as you can see, access is 9W northbound, in, out only. You have quite a bit of shoulder here. Our main concern here is it'll need a health department approval for mobile food trucks. I'm assuming that this will take place at night. There's no lighting details yet, so they'll need to provide that. Those are 2 required modifications. Third is approval from NISDOT for those 2 new curb cuts. And our major concern when it comes to this is you have a use that requires only 9 spaces. Yes, it's takeout only, but what happens during peak when people might be waiting or wanting to get in this place and there's only 9 spaces? So a couple of comments there would be signage. There's quite about a decent amount of space along the shoulder here. So we want some signage that says no parking in the state right away. And also they should do a parking demand analysis. They should really look at their peak operation, what they expect to get here, and see if they actually can handle what they're trying to do at the site. And I think that covers all my recommendations and also has a lot of annotation on it. It's NISDOT lighting, the health department for those permits, demand analysis for parking during the peak hours, and that no parking signage on the New York State right away at that shoulder.
Who's on the neighboring lot? But it looks like a business of some kind or.
Let me bring up the aerial again. Oop, hang on a second. Aerial, I think that actually is a home.
Is that a circular
It looks
swimming
like
pool?
Looks like a pool.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it looks like a house.
Did they talk
Very
about
cool.
hours of operation?
I don't have the hours of operation yet, but we can make that a comment. I mean, that's the only that would be the only neighbor would be that one. Yeah, that's one single family residence.
I would want some kind of visual or noise barrier between the lots that are very close to the house.
Go back to the site plan, see if they do have some room between it, and they do have some landscaping. There is also quite a bit of contour difference in the back actually too. So, but some fencing, they may want to look at that too. We can add that as a comment.
So they're looking at like 4 food trucks, is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, it's 4 food trucks.
Okay.
Rob, did they address employee parking? Because I'm sure the food trucks are gonna
Yeah.
not drive away every
I'll
night.
mark them here. There are, in addition to those 9 spaces, you have 2 employee parking spaces.
Okay,
for
thank you.
use.
Yeah. Okay.
Are they providing any kind of tables or
No, it's out. It's takeout only.
takeout only? Okay. So no trash cans, no nothing.
They should have trash cans on site. People throw wrappers away all the time.
They have a dumpster area.
I think so, but I'm not seeing it on the site plan right now.
Because it'd be good to have it on the side.
I
opposite
think
the-
it's right. No, that's porta potty, so they do have that on site. I'd have to look. Let's see. Hang on. Let's see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. Might be in here. That's a snow storage area. That's a DOT drainage easement. So yeah, I'm not seeing the dumpster location on this site. And they're definitely going to have that unless they're pulling. I don't think, based on the way they're citing this, it doesn't look like they're pulling the food trucks off every night. So
I would recommend having it on the other side from where the house is.
said the dumpster location.
I thought food trucks had to get washed every night.
All right, so comments now are NISDOT lighting, health department. Parking will also add about a fencing comment and a dumpster count.
Motion to support staff comments, Mike Baden.
Second, Vivian.
All right, good. Any further discussion? All right, all those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, good. Motion passes. All right, moving on to Rochester with the petroleum SPA. Lucky Petroleum.
All right.
Any recusals? Okay, Robert, it's all yours.
All right, so existing gas station, they're gonna be demolishing existing convenience store and demolishing the pump location and removing and moving the fuel tanks as well. And we're going to replace it with a new convenience store and a new canopy and fuel station. And I'll just bring up the aerial real quick. Gotta remember that I don't need to switch screens. Okay, here we are. Zoom out a little bit, give everybody a sense where we are. Route 209. Existing lot, there are actually 3 uses on the lot. You have this store that's going to remain, you have a 2-family house that's going to remain, and then you have this portion of the site, which is going to be the part that's amended. And I will show you. All right. So that's existing conditions as well right now. Gives you a better sense. They have some wide open curb cuts. They're going to be fixing them up as part of this project too. As you can see, this is existing conditions with an aerial overlay. And that's the proposed changes. So you can see that they're making these curb cuts more to NISDOT specifications. Those are 30 feet wide in length, but they're still the same number. Let's see, I believe I have another one which shows the in and out movements, and I'll get to that in a bit. But as you can see, the fuel pump is now moved towards the front of the property. Convenience stores moved to the rear. There's also a drive-through. That use beyond being a convenience store, which has a drive-through lane, isn't known. So I don't know if they're like per se putting a Dunkin' Donuts or something like that in there, but I don't know. They're showing room for about 8 cars in there and have pretty substantial length back to the corridor from there. But I don't know what kind of establishment.
Rob, I believe, and I don't know 100%, I believe it is a Dunkin' Donuts,
Not surprised.
but I don't know that for 100% fact.
All right. Thank you. All right. So next, this is up. This is our erosion sediment control plan. There is over an acre disturbance. Actually, no, just not an acre disturbance. Let's see. We got that. Lighting is okay. This is actually the canopy on this. This is probably the lowest lit canopy I've ever seen. I think it has an average of 16-foot candles under the canopy. So nice job with those LED lights there. Landscaping plan. And also you'll see there's a sidewalk along the frontage that's proposed. And now you see the in-out movements too as well. So that's out. This is full access. And that is, let me zoom in. So I can't throw my reading glasses on. Oh. There we go. So out, full access, out. And I do have truck turning templates here. So of course they'll need NISDOT approval for that access. Changes. And there's your truck turning templates there. So movements will come from here and out. And they'll also alternatively go out that way out of this site as well. So they do have room. That's what the proposal looks like. It's very similar to other convenience stores that have Dunkins in them that we've seen. So. And we have a freestanding sign. I'm going to recommend that they try to do a monument style sign there. So required modifications are NISDOT access. They should take a look at the drive-through, especially depending on what the use is. They should look at the queuing, making sure what the peak queuing is, that there's no queues that go into the state route, especially during peak hours. Sign should consider an alternative monument style sign with the associated landscaping. And given that the tanks are being moved, I didn't see anything in the application that said we're doing soil testing in accordance with DEC procedures there. So we'll want to see something like that. And I think I have something in the chat. No. Oh.
Rob, if I can, the concern that we have is that if it, this looks like a double lane configuration for the drive-through. So we should see how they're proposing to queue that.
Well, one's a drive past lane, one's a drive through lane.
Okay, we should see the queuing. I don't know. We should see the queuing for that, because what we don't want to have happen is have the queue go back up into the other areas. And so we should see the queuing on that, so we understand it. And we're not enamored with the idea of the gas pumps being in front of the store.
No.
From a design perspective, preferably the way they are now, which is on the side, is a lot better than the gas pumps in the front.
Right. And I mean, I think there's regulations in the town zoning statute that generally requires them on the side and rear if possible. It would be nice by design style if they were to maintain that street line with the two-family dwelling, the retail space, laundromat, and the convenience store. Would be nice. It would give it more Hamlet kind of feel if they could do something like that, but it would probably not work with the queue that they needed for especially if it was a Dunkin'.
And then can we go back to the landscaping, Rob?
Sure.
We know what we're planning in the front, because now's an opportunity to start thinking about some street trees out here if they have them.
So we have a couple of trees. I think there are only 2 trees along the frontage here.
Yeah. And then the last thing I want to say with respect to this is we want to make sure that NISDOT is comfortable with the location of the future sidewalk, because I believe NISDOT would like their sidewalks to be on their property, as I understand it. So we want to make sure that that's the case, and we'll note that in a conversation in a response back to NISDOT, that the future sidewalk should be located in such a manner that NISDOT, that effectively it can be constructed. That's all.
Okay.
Dennis, I know the sidewalks here, there are none anywhere near this property, but the planning board, is to be commended for trying to start with this project. So.
Yeah, and we'll say that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Dennis, what's your issue with having the pumps in front of the store? Which, I mean, almost all gas stations do that.
Yeah, we've the most design guidelines, when you're starting to deal with these, they move the pumps to the side or the rear. And that's just a design guideline issue. That's if you look at the one, let me give you the best example I know of side yard and moving a building up front. And that's in the village of New Paltz, where they built the new Stewart's.
Right.
And compared to what the old Stewart's was versus what the new Stewart's was, it's completely different. And Rob, do we have architecturals on this or not?
Yeah, I show them. Hang on. There they are.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to see. Yeah.
I got one question on the referral. It has that it's individual septics. Where's the septic on this? It didn't look like there's much area.
They're hooking up to the existing. So let me go to the it's in the back. Over and.
I think we had a comment on.
I have another existing site plan which shows it, but I used the aerial one. I didn't show it.
All right,
I do have the location on another site plan.
Right, the area disturbance seemed a little bit strange for me at first, but all right.
Just wondering, what is the advantage of the monument sign? Just aesthetic, or are there any other?
Yes.
Okay.
These are design these are old, this is almost an old school comment that we used to make all the time about 15, 20 years ago, that since that time, most places have changed away from pylon signs. So it's unusual to actually have to make the comment now.
Yeah, and it's in our design guidelines as well, the county's design guidelines.
It's also, in the town- it's in the town code as well as a preferred.
I thought so. All right,
Okay.
anybody else?
Is there any possibility for solar panels?
You have a resiliency comment, Rob, or
No, I
not?
didn't put one in, but we can put one in.
Okay,
All right.
Move to accept recommendations.
thanks, Vivian. We'll
All
add
right.
that comment on solar panels.
Resiliency. Yeah, I'll do that.
I'll second it, McLaughlin.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Good. All right.
By the way, Bert has said there's setback requirements related to storage buildings for farm equipment, poultry, and livestock. I don't think that covers what the buffer size needs to be, but okay.
Okay.
So
All
we'll
right.
continue.
Moving on to Rochester. Mike, I assume you're going to recuse yourself?
Yeah, I think it's the next three I'm recused on.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, very good. Anybody else need to recuse? All right, Robert, it's all yours.
All right. So the first two are very related. I'll start with that. So, and this is very related to the moratorium and to the zoning statute and subdivision statute updates, which were mentioned by one of these speakers. So the town is updating again its comprehensive plan, but they're not changing the actual plan. What they're doing is bringing documents, including the 2006 comprehensive plan's already there, but they have a historic farms. Let me actually go to the next slide because that's actually there. Historic resources report, reconnaissance survey. There's a property list of historic properties. There's an open space inventory that they conduct in 2016. There's also a natural heritage plan in 2018. And what they're trying to do here is, with the knowledge that they're going to be updating their zoning statute and their subdivision statute, and there's certain aspects that they want to protect, and they want to make sure that their zoning statute and subdivision statute are consistent with their comprehensive plan. They're adding, formalizing these documents which already exist as part of their comprehensive plan. Only advisory comment was just to make sure that the public hearing notice notifies the adjacent towns as well as the town residents. But otherwise, that's the only comment.
Motion to support staff, Watkins.
Second, Vivian.
Very good. Any further discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Very good. Okay. Now on to the moratorium.
Okay, local law A of 2022, it's a moratorium. And the purpose is, as I just said with our comprehensive plan, what they wanted to do is they want to given the development pressure that's going on in the town right now and the number of issues that they want to protect, and they want to look at their zoning statute and subdivision statutes and update them. So they want to, so the current effects on growth, increased development, environmental sensitivity, and health, safety, and general welfare. That's the purpose of the law. So the length of it is 6 months or 180 days. The town has the option to reduce it by resolution if they finish their work beforehand. They also have the option to extend it by resolution 2 times, 3 months apiece. Our usual comment will apply if they do decide to extend the moratorium. For transparency purposes, they should share their progress not only with the town residents, but with us when they re-refer if they do an extension. So that's, we usually issue that kind of recommendation when we see moratorium extensions if they're necessary. So the moratorium is pretty broad. It's on consideration and approval of residential commercial projects subject to building permit, site plan, special permit, or subdivision review. And they're in process of finalizing considering updates to the town statutes. So there is quite a broad they have a detailed finding section which lists a number of reasons why they're doing this. The exemptions are pretty detailed as well. So anything that is before the PB, the planning board, the ZBA, which has a favorable decision and is on or up before the adoption of this local law, can move forward. Any permit approved by a building department on or before the law can move forward. Applications for zoning changes or inclusion in the EOO, which is the economic EO overlay district. Agricultural actions protected under Article 25A, Ag and Markets Law. Single and two family homes that do not trigger subdivision, site plan, or special permit review. 6 accessory dwelling units are allowed. They can go forward. Ministerial building permits that do not trigger review, and any action granted a waiver. And they have a very detailed waiver or hardship section which applicants can apply to and get an exception. So comments were the extension comment I made earlier. And we discussed this a bit, and we were wondering whether they could expand the exemptions for development in the hamlet area to let, if there's actual proposals that go on within the hamlet areas, the more urban areas of the town, that they should consider letting those go forward. And also, if there's any housing proposals that have, say, a 10 or 20% affordability component in them, those should be exempt as well.
Yeah.
And
go ahead, Rob.
Okay, and then a typical comment we make is applicants can proceed at their own risk. So now they might be zoned out by the end of it, but at least they can still move their project.
They could be in front of the planning board for site plan or special permit, but they won't know what they won't know whether they're going to get approval until such time
Exactly.
that any of the amendments are passed. That's
Right.
that's
And those
the key.
are right. And those are both advisory comments.
And then the last one I think we wanted to talk about is they're going to allow an exemption for applications for a zoning change or inclusion in the EAO district. The question is, if the application for the zoning change is approved, you still couldn't get your site plan approval or special permit to build anything in that district. And that seems to me to be somewhat disingenuous. So the thought was that if you're going to allow the applications to proceed, once that goes forward, you should essentially allow anything that the town board's willing to rezone it and go through on that basis. Then the short answer is that they should be able to proceed towards site plan review or special permit.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Let's see something else.
So those are all advisory, Rob?
The required mod for the proof of progress, that's a typical
Okay,
required mod.
and the rest are advisory.
Right, the rest are advisory.
Support staff, Watkins.
Motion to support staff, McLaughlin.
Okay, that's a second.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Very good. Okay, got one more for Rochester.
Yeah, I'm still recused on this, Drew.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Local law B. So we saw the town of Rochester accessory dwelling unit proposal earlier. It was very good, but they responded to our comments very favorably. So if you recall, originally they were going to require 1.5 acres in certain cases. They removed that for detached ones. They removed that requirement for non-conforming lots. If somebody wants to apply for one, as long as they have adequate water sewer, it'll be allowed, but it will require site plan review. Those are exactly consistent with the recommendations we made. So staff recommends approval. And
Okay.
kudos to the town. This becomes this basically is the model statute for ADUs now for the county.
Motion to support staff, McLaughlin.
Vivian.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Very good.
Rob, thank you for your very insightful comments. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Cool.
And Mike, I got a quick question unrelated to anything. In last year, you had local laws that were number 1, 2, or 3. Now
Yep.
you go into AB.
We've gone to letters because what we found is if you number it and it takes longer than you think, then you end up out of sequence. And when you file with New York State, you need to stay consecutive. So we're referring them and considering them as letters. And then when we adopt them as the next available number.
Okay.
Because we had a local law, our ADU was local law 1. We've adopted 2 other local laws since that time. That's why it's now B, and it will actually probably get adopted as 4.
Okay.
So that's
right.
the reason.
Good point. Okay, thank you.
It's a clerical and bookkeeping thing.
All right. Okay, next one
It's
is
a good point.
Rosendale Lewis Solar.
I'll recuse on this one, Chair.
Okay, Jerry, thank you.
That's the next 2.
That's
All
the
right.
next 2, yes.
Yeah. You're doing these together, Robert?
I am indeed.
Okay, very good.
All right. Okay, Rosendale Lewis Solar. It's a 5 megawatt large scale solar facility off on Coutant Road. Okay, let me go to air. Actually, you can go to an aerial on this one. All right, so here's the property. New York State Thruway is on the western boundary of it. As you can see, this is Central Hudson, is this? So not any neighbors really to this project, which is a good start. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. I have a lot of materials back. Both the fire district, police department have signed off on this. SWIP has been revised once. They're looking for a second revision based on comments from the town's planner or reviewer. So there's that. Still waiting on that. But so here's the area. So it's a area of smaller than the, obviously it's a lot smaller than the actual complete property. There is clearing going on. The clearing, they are aware of the bats issue, well aware of that. So only be clearing during those time frames. Let's see, they are avoiding wetlands. I can show you that. This is actually the existing conditions of the grading taken from the SWIP. And that's the proposal. So you have your linkage, links in the Coutant Road to the southeast. And that's the wetland that's on the property. Town of Rosendale requires an agricultural fence, but we'd still recommend that they leave about a foot at the bottom for wildlife trespass migration. There is a just to the west of this, on this parcel, there is a Ulster County habitat core, so we'd like to see easy migration of animals through it. Some of our typical comments would be stormwater monitoring as they do any regrading on the property. They are aware that they have to complete a phase 1A, phase 1B archaeological per SHPO's recommendation. Those are not complete yet, so we'll just make that comment as well. And wildlife fencing. Also, let's see, Amanda gave me a comment, and it has to do with the type of planting soil that they use, which should be native species, and also the type that
It's pollinator friendly.
Yes,
It's a
pollinator
conservation
friendly.
mix.
Yeah, it's a pollinator friendly.
Yeah, and we'll give the town the site for that.
Yeah. That's our comments.
Okay, good.
Move to accept staff recommendation.
Second, McCarthy.
All right, thank you.
Rob, this is Tom Wilkin.
Yep.
I don't know if we would want to put a comment in there when they say that the town might want to look at their definition of agricultural fencing, because there's many different types of fencing. It depends on what type of livestock or animals you're trying to contain. So to say livestock fencing is kind
Yeah,
of
this is essentially a deer fence here.
I realize that, but to say agricultural fencing, it's not really agricultural fencing. So well, unless you're at an orchard and looking for a deer fence like that. So that's a bad definition in a way.
Yeah.
We'll have that discussion, Tom.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Okay, all those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes on both applications. All right.
How long?
Yeah, next one is Town of Saugerties, Elna Magnet. Anybody need to recuse?
Yes, Joe Ferraro does.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you, Mr. Ferraro.
I also have a question on the recusal rules. So I know I'm recusing myself from this one, it's obvious, but am I required to recuse myself from anything in the town of Saugerties?
Now, only
No.
things on boards you serve on that you can take an action on, or if you're, if you have a conflict of interest.
Well, yeah, this one's a conflict of interest, so that's obvious, but yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, Robert.
All right, so Elna Magnetics is expanding. It's off Kings Highway. And actually, not Kings Highway, it's off Malden Turnpike. So here it is. And they're doing a cold storage warehouse in a separate building, and also an expansion to the west of the existing building. I'll bring up the site plan. So it's 15,000 square foot for manufacturing. That's the addition, and nearly 19,000 square feet for the cold storage warehouse. That's existing conditions. And what they're proposing to do, so they're updating a lot of the stormwater with this. They're using some low impact design. Mostly what they're doing, because of soil conditions, they're using planters. And they're upgrading their landscaping quite substantially, as you can see from what they have now for that stormwater purposes. It's in the parking. They're also land banking the parking. And that's a good way of keeping less impervious surface, and also responsive to their demand.
So that's down here. So
Yeah, it's on the yeah, thank you. So no changes to the access. I don't need to talk to the county about access. Again, this is your grading plan. You can see they're expanding their stormwater retention on site. That's existing. Okay. One thing that is lacking, and again, that's their landscaping plan, which is native. We checked that as native species. And pretty standard manufacturing kind of style structures. So comments with that was, we didn't see an updated lighting plan. Like to see what kind of fixtures are being used, where they're being used, photometrics. And also just a question about sustainability. We already have the answer about the SWIP and what they're doing in terms of green technology for the stormwater. But whether they have ability to do solar or EV charging stations for
parking lots
for the employees, things of that nature, they should consider those alternative fuel sources. They should look and consider those options.
Got a lot of rooftop.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, that's it.
And we also want to say, wanted to say congratulations to the community and to the company for the expansion.
Exactly.
Could you explain what land banking is for the parking area?
Sure. So this is So they're, if at such time they have need demand, they're basically banking it. They're meeting the parking requirements, but also not necessarily developing them just now. But they have indicated that they have the room for them should they need them at such time.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
Motion to support McLaughlin.
I have something I want to add. This is Donna Wise, but I want to know if in the lighting, we're going to suggest dark skies.
Yeah, we always do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks,
I'm
Donna.
sorry, I'm new.
Yep, that's good, Stan. It's a good comment.
Second, Vivian.
Thanks, Vivian. All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry if I missed this, but do we have all the truck loading docks and turning, all that stuff, like the truck pathway?
No, actually, let me see if I have truck turning.
Yeah, you do, Rob. It's the next one down.
Oh, sorry.
It shows the trucks moving through the parking lot,
Yeah, I thought I had.
the loading dock.
1 second. Let me try my annotations. Next one down.
Or next one up. I'm looking at it right now on the other one. There it is.
There it is.
Okay.
Okay. You go. Can imagine they wouldn't be there.
Okay.
And actually, they're here and they're over here as well. All right.
All right. Okay, all those opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. Motion passes. Okay, on to the Village of Saugerties with the Clover LLC. Any recusals? Okay, no recusals. You're gonna do both of these together?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
All right. So as we're entering in the Village of Saugerties, this is a well-known structured former Dragon Inn. Proposal to be renovated and redone and reused. So you have that. I don't know if I brought in any current images of it in, but it's been a pretty eyesore kind of state for over 20 years now. Almost there, I think 30 now.
Yes, 30 years.
Yeah. So what they're proposing to do is they're going to renovate the existing structure, and it's going to be professional offices. There'll be 4 of them. An apartment for the residents of the landlord owner on the 2nd floor. So the person who's redeveloping it is going to live here. And then there's going to be a short-term rental use. And also the owner's apartment. So it's going to happen in phases. First thing they're going to do is put that residence on the 2nd floor. Then they'll do the office spaces and the short-term rental. And then they'll have another apartment in the structure as well. And that's what it's going to look like. Comments, and one of our interesting comments is you can see while it meets the parking statute, and they're narrowing the curb cut here. That'll require NISDOT require mod, but there's substantial pavement here for this amount of parking, and just want to make an advisory comment back to the applicant to say you could narrow this and create less permeable surface and actually reduce your costs if you tighten this up a bit. So something to consider for the site. Okay. Yeah. Landscaping. So comments would be on NISDOT for that change to the curb cut. What sustainability concerns are they going to be including in this facility? Are they going to be doing any geothermal, electric charging stations, solar, anything of alternative fuel sources, anything of that consideration? They should look into that. And the advisory comment about the reduction in impervious surface.
Hey,
Impervious
Rob.
surface, that's interesting.
Rob,
Yes,
can we put a comment in there congratulating the applicant for cleaning up the site
absolutely.
and developing it after sitting there for more than 30 years?
Absolutely. I've intended to do that actually.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll move to support staff recommendations. McLaughlin.
I'll second it, Mike Baden.
Second on Vivian, thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Robert, I have one question. Is this on a sewer system or has it got septic field?
It's got municipal.
Okay, good.
Sewer.
Yeah, all right. Okay, any other discussion? All right, all those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes on both the area variance and the site plan review. Okay, now we're on to Shandaken for the Phoenicia Wellness.
I think we got one more in Saugerties, don't we?
Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I think you're right. I missed one. Yep, you're right. Sorry. Any recusals on the other one in the village of Saugerties? Okay, Robert, all yours.
All right. So it is Partition Street. Commercial district, also a historic overlay district. And what they're proposing right there is behind this building, a 5-story, 15-unit apartment building. And it needs a couple variances. We'll see this again for site plan review. But do have some comments on it. Let me go to my slides. So variance for number of stories, maximums 3, they're proposing 5. They also have a side yard comp variance, and there's a parking variance. They want to provide 4 spaces, and it was either 4 or 5 spaces that they want to provide instead of 9 that's required. Comment on that is, how does a 15-unit apartment building require only 9 spaces? It is next to, immediately adjacent to a village lot, but I don't know, that still accommodates full-time apartment spaces. So just a comment there. So these are both renderings. So this is the view from Partition Street. And you can see the building behind it. And this is the view from the municipal lot. No windows on this side. There are windows on the other 3 sides of the building. So wondering if this is the first of 2 proposals, maybe, don't know. Because whole one side is blank. Okay. This is the again, we haven't seen this for site plan yet, but this is the site plan. So you have 4 spots, a dumpster. One of those 4 spots is handicap accessible. And you got a 5-story apartment building.
Question, will you be inquiring about whether they're expecting something next door or not with the windows, lack thereof?
Yes.
Excellent. One more question. I heard you mention native plants and landscaping in one of the proposals. I want to know if that's always the in the comment.
Yes.
As preference.
Yeah.
Thank you
If we
so
make a
much.
landscaping plan, we always do that.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So one thing that should be known, it's in a historic district. I don't have any notes from State Historic Preservation Office yet. There's also a commission in the village that has to issue a certificate of appropriateness. So we'd like to see these sent there because these are not, and yeah, it has lintels at the top, but.
It's gonna be sent there already.
What's that?
It's gonna be sent there already. It's on the,
Yeah, I know, but we'd like to see the comments back. When you
Yeah.
consider the variance question, especially given the number of stories, you have to
And the
consider
blank wall.
blank wall and community character under the if there's any adverse change in community character, and look at the historic. So we want to bring it up twice. We'll bring it up in site plan as well, of course. So
Is there any?
required modifications would be prior to the variance being granted, they should be really getting feedback from SHPO and the Historic Commission. And they should really look at, before granting any parking variances, there may be something that I'm missing with respect to municipal lot in this equation here, but how does the parking demand for 15 units meet only 4 spots? And only one of them, is handicapped. So basically so you have 3 spots for 15 units. So I'm not exactly sure how that works. An advisory comment would be that we'll need to see this for site plan again. And then we usually have a whole slew of issues, which are range from historic, design, sustainability, etc.
How about affordability, Rob? You want to mention that? as a-
And affordability was going to be one of those components as well.
Yeah, okay.
Has the
Motion,
fire department weighed off on this?
I'm sorry.
Has the fire department weighed off on this 5-story
No,
structure?
this is like again, this is advisory, so I haven't seen. So I mean, and you know what? That's a good comment for considering whether to go to 5 stories, whether the
Yeah.
fire department can serve 5 stories. So
Or
let's
would
do
they
that.
need external fire escapes?
I'm not sure on a 5-story built on a sprinkler building, whether that's the case.
Village code requires it.
And I'm not sure whether it could be internal, I guess my point being.
Either way, it's a building code issue, not a
Yeah.
planning issue.
Yeah, the village code requires something like that.
But I think the fire comment for variance is something they need to know.
Motion to support McLaughlin.
I have,
So I'm losing folks. All right. So we have we'll have a motion. We'll do additional discussion. Vince, you made the motion?
Yeah, I did.
And I think Vivian seconded.
Yes.
Okay. So any further discussion?
yeah, I have a question. About 10 years ago, there was a thing that we kind of looked at. I don't know, maybe it's fallen out of favor now, but maybe in the village or it's different too, is if you're on near the property line, you can't block the sunlight to the neighboring parcel so much, and that's kind of, I mean, the shadow from that would be kind of a big shadow. Is that still in part of some of the zoning or not? You know what I mean?
There is a state law that talks about access to the sun.
Yeah.
This is on the north side of, I'm trying to think where this is, but it's on the north side of the adjoining building. Not a lot of sunblock on that particular location.
Okay.
I'm struggling. I know what you're talking about, Tom. I'm struggling with it myself. I don't think it's fallen out of favor, but I would say that even though that this is getting a variance, it actually does meet the height requirements in the statute. The
Yeah.
variance is for the number of stories, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's it actually meets the height requirements, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
Rob, you said that the fire department comment will be when it comes back down.
No, I'll make it now because if they're issuing
all
A
right.
variance for height, you want to know if the fire company can serve it.
Verify whether they actually have ability to handle that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, this is Mitchell Cohen. In addition to the fire department signing off on their ability to handle that, I'm almost positive in the state of New York, there's over a certain height, you have to have a fire escape built into the as an ulterior method of escape from that height of a building. I think it's over 3 stories. I knew down at Fort Hamilton that they had to have it done for commercial, for apartments, but fire, you can't get down a 5-story fire staircase inside. There has to be an alternate means of egress from that location.
Yeah, this is Mike Baden. That's not really a question for us to consider. That's a building inspector's decision.
Yeah.
That's true, but if they're gonna supply another site plan to be reviewed, they should have that built into it.
Keep in mind, we will see this on the site plan. This is just for the area variance. So we'll see it again.
And the that comment as a required mod.
Yeah, I'll make it a requirement. I mean, we can make a comment, include something about reviewing it for ability to serve and ability for egress.
Oh, okay, all right.
So we can do something like that. That's easy enough.
I mean, this is kind of off the topic, but there's only going to be like 3 apartments per floor.
Yep.
Okay. Or is it mixed use? It's like the first floor,
No, it's all it's looks like it's ground floor apartments. It's all apartments.
Hmm.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't have a listing of number of bedrooms for these units.
Okay, anybody else? Comment?
Yeah, this is Glenn. Rob, I know you touched on this about the design. I'm not sure that this shoebox reinforces the historic nature of downtown, of the downtown there.
And that's why we're asking SHPO and the Historic Commission to weigh in and see if it's appropriate.
If we take the comment, that's why that historic commission referral is in there.
Yep.
Anything else?
All right. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, on to Shandaken. Any
I'm
recusal?
recused, Welton.
Okay, thanks, Vivian. Okay, Robert.
All right.
Pardon me, I'm recused as well.
Okay,
For reasons of employment.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this. So Phoenicia is going to get, or proposing to receive, a new pharmacy and former restaurant. Riccardello's, is that the restaurant?
It's what I think that was former.
Yeah, former Riccardello's. So building is located here. So most of the modifications to it are internal in nature, and the external ones are just upgrades to the facade, the building itself. I think I am listed in the slide. The changes that are external have to do with layout of parking area. And we actually want to formalize the parking area behind the building. I'll go to a PowerPoint. So structural repairs and upgrades, some new signage, wall signage, a new ramp that'll be in the back of the building, and a parking plan. So the parking plan is a real thing. One of the things we're commenting on here. That's existing conditions. And this is the proposal. So first thing you'll note is there's a number of different lots in here. So we'd like to see easements indicated on the site plan. And we just want to make a comment to the town that given that given the number of parcels involved in this and the number of businesses associated with it, at some point the town might want to, rather than include this as part of site plan, maybe make this municipal lot. I don't know what your position on that is, but they may want to do that. Other comment on this is no indication of what this material is in here, given flooding in the area. They may want to do gravel. I don't know if it's gonna be paved or not, but they may want, they should at least note what the surface material is going to be there, but there's no indication of that.
Yeah, the concern if we have is DEP's reaction to
Yes.
Impervious surfaces in a watershed is not conducive to getting it done, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yep.
Yes. Succinctly put. The other thing is, and I'll move to my car mods. That's the building, and that's what's going to look like. You can see the ramp in the back. So lighting details, don't have those. Sustainability concerns, our usual sustainability concerns, but including floodproofing. We have many photos from the hurricane when Main Street flooded, and we want to make sure that the first floor is floodproof if it's not already completed. Easement should be sewn on it, and the pavement.
We may not call it flood proofing. We may flood resilient would be the better term, I think, than proofing. You know.
Yeah, that was like one person put it in the office, and flood resiliency is probably a better way of going back.
Yeah, and that's choice of materials, those kinds of things when you think about it.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
Mitchell Cohen makes a motion for support the staff.
Okay,
Chair will second.
all right, thank you. Any further discussion?
Were they including a drive-through at all?
I don't believe so.
No.
There's no drive-through.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
And
right,
this, just so everybody knows, this is a very essential service up here.
yes,
So that, I think the town is thrilled to have it.
Very
They
exciting.
lost it, they lost the
Yeah.
drugstore on a corner just up the street from here to the west. So this is a very important and essential service.
all right. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Okay, on to our last one, Shawangunk. Any recusals?
Watkins recused.
Okay, thanks, Mark. All right, Robert, it's all yours.
All right. Proposal at 4 Bonaventura Avenue to convert existing structure to hardware use. Let me bring the aerial up. There we go. It's on Route 208. Both sides. This is the property. Does have sidewalk around it to a certain point and a crosswalk here. Access, there's 2 curb cuts on 208 here, and proposing to reactivate the curb cut on this portion of 208 here. Access through the development will be one way and through and out.
Rob, just for anyone who might be familiar with Walk Hill, that's the old Ford dealership garage.
Thank you. Okay. So that's existing conditions. That's proposal. It's a little bit tough to read. We got full cutoff lighting, dark sky compliant. And that's the existing again, and this is proposed. So one thing with the truck movements is some concern about how tight these spaces are between each other. And given that it's a one-way through movement, might be an idea to angle the parking spaces so that you create more width between the aisles and also help with those backing movements. Let's see. Other comments. Well, obviously we'll need NISDOT to look at these 2 access points. I don't believe are changing, but they'll need to look at this one, this reactivation here. The change of use, they'll probably look at the whole site anyway. But comments are, so we have a cut sheet for the lamp, but we don't have a photometric, so we'll need to do that. Again, our typical sustainability comment with respect to stormwater. I mean, this is not an acre disturbance, but so lighting.
And we don't have any architecturals on this at all, right, Rob?
No, I mean, you have the existing structure. I mean, I can bring that up if you all want to see it. I don't think
it's not the prettiest thing in the world. That's my point.
No, I thought I had actually brought it in earlier. I know I have. So, well, I can do that. Hang on. So that's it from one portion of 208. Then you go around the corner here. That's the side.
So we want to make sure that it's hard to tell whether or not those trees are on the state right away or on the property. We want to make sure that those trees remain as a buffer.
Right.
I think they're on the state right away, but it's hard to tell exactly where they are. And then the other thing is that generally landscaping, can you go back to the 208 when you go around the corner up, coming
Sure.
down to it? Yeah, that's it. Keep going that way. The front of the building, if I can.
Goodness there.
Yeah, so they used to use the front of this building over, in that area where the blue truck is. They used to use that for storage of cars, for the display of cars. So now you have an opportunity to put some landscaping in there, get rid of some of that
Right.
spacing in there. Mainly because people don't jump the curb and try to park in there, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the thought with respect to that. And then it would be nice, you have a really good opportunity, you know, and we're happy to see the building reused. Be nice to see them do some architectural work on the buildings itself. That adjoining garage facility is not the best. It's sort of an add-on to the site. So hopefully you can do something with regard to that. And then having a dumpster location out front is not the best thing in the world as well.
Yeah, and we also had a comment about outdoor storage and display areas.
yeah.
Those need to be defined. I mean, hardware stores often have outdoor displays. Anything that is a sensitive item or chemical, those should be stored inside, not outside. They need to be covered. Let's see, what else do I got? Let me go to actual comments here. Truck turning movements through the site, those should be provided. It's a tight site. Drainage, and we made the landscaping comment, but it'd be nice, you got that hill on, this all slopes downward. It'd be nice to see or control how the water is flowing down the hill, especially, I mean, one of the slopes here,
The new driveway is what you're looking at.
new
right,
driveway
Rob?
here. I mean, you're also putting new parking back here, so you're gonna have more impervious surface. This, we got a lot of some erosion going on in there. So it'd be nice to know where some swales are, how they're guiding the stormwater. You do have a catch basin here and a catch basin, I think, right behind this car, actually. So there is some stormwater in the
So-
right away.
The short answer is we get a feeling that the application's been a bit rushed, but we can understand the reason because they want to make the applicant assured that they have an opportunity to essentially get what they need to do to get going. And I think
Dennis,
that's a.
Sorry, you might want to add in your ask about the architectural that I just looked it up. It is 208 there is part of the Shangam Mountain Scenic Byway. So
Yeah.
maybe emphasize, you know, that plan in terms of that particular area.
That's a great comment. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, that's good.
Is the chain link fence on their property or adjoining property?
I mean, it's
It's
on
gotta
their,
Yeah,
on their
DOT
property.
generally doesn't erect chain link fence, so I suspect it's theirs.
Ugh, okay.
So we can make that, you want to make a comment about that? My suspicion is you're going to want to keep fencing if they do outdoor storage to cut down on theft, but we can certainly make that comment as well.
Yeah, I second that. Ugh.
Okay.
I mean, the fence doesn't, enclose the whole property, so right now it's not providing any security. They'd either
Yeah,
have to
it's sort of
expand
a
it or take-
leftover.
Yeah. ugly.
It is a hodgepodge of buildings. It can come together kind of nicely and for certain activities, but it'd be nice to see something tie it all together.
Yeah. And this is just for my own curiosity, but when you angle the parking, do you actually lose a parking space? I mean, does angling reduce the space for parking numbers of space?
It generally doesn't, depends on the angle, obviously, but it generally doesn't. And given what Rob was talking about, the reason to do this here is that you don't want people, especially people that are loading stuff and everything else, you don't want to somebody trying to load stuff in their vehicle and somebody backing into them.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it's one way, then it's one way. People are not trying to go against the grain. They're sort of headed in the right direction, out to look at arrows and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I think it's a great idea as long as nobody says, oh, now you cost me 2 parking spaces. Great.
All right, well, that's the count.
Somebody want to make a motion on it?
Motion so moved, Vivian.
Second, Mike Baden.
All right, any further discussion? All those opposed? And any abstentions? All right, good. Motion passes. All right, that's it for tonight, guys.
I move to adjourn.
Very good.
Second, Stana
All right.
Weisberg.
Anybody opposed?
Thank you, everybody. Have a good Memorial Day.
Good night.
Thanks
Very
for
good.
having me. Good night, folks.
Good
Oh,
night.
happy Mother's Day for those folks, right?
Thanks.
Good night.